How Japanese minimalists design a 20 square meters living space without feeling cramped? Have you ever wondered how a Japanese living space just 20 square meters can feel so open, so light, and yet so complete? In a culture where silence carries more weight than noise, where emptiness holds as much value as presence, minimalism isn't just a lifestyle, it's a way of being. It's not about living with the least, but about living only with what truly matters. We live in a time that constantly urges us to have more, do more, show more. But ironically, the more we accumulate, the more disconnected many of us feel. We chase productivity, collect things, and yet peace feels out of reach. So the question becomes, is there another way to live? A quieter, more intentional, more grounded path? Japanese minimalism might just be that path, but not in the way you might expect. Because unlike the Western image of minimalism, pristine white rooms, spotless countertops, and bare shelves, Japanese simplicity doesn't stop at the visual. It goes inward. It aligns with the spirit. A tidy space is just the surface. Beneath it lies centuries of philosophy shaped by mindfulness, harmony, and purpose. There are subtle, quiet principles that guide how Japanese people design and live within their spaces. They're not written down, but they're everywhere in each gesture, each decision, each corner of the home. And if you're willing to slow down and look closely, these principles reveal a powerful truth. Minimalism is not about having less, it's about having just enough. In this video, we'll explore that world where 20 square meters isn't a limitation, but a doorway to a deeper, more intentional way of living. And it all begins with the first element: light the invisible thread that opens up not just a room, but the space within. 1. Optimizing light and a sense of openness. There's something quietly remarkable that happens when you step into a tiny Japanese apartment, just 20 square meters. And yet, it doesn't feel cramped or confining. Instead, it feels weightless, as if the space is gently whispering something calming. Everything seems to breathe, to live, and to open up a private stillness for the mind. That's the work of light, not just physical light, but a kind of presence, an energy that flows through space. In Japanese culture, this is key life force. In Shinto philosophy, sunlight is the embodiment of life itself. It illuminates not just rooms, but spirits. In a densely populated city like Tokyo, light becomes a vital design principle, one that transforms micro-living into something expansive from the inside out. When you live small, light stops being optional. It becomes a shaper of experience. A single beam of sun slipping through a sheer curtain in the morning can soften your mood. A slanted shadow on a wooden floor in the late afternoon can slow you down, just enough to remember you're alive, not merely functioning. The Japanese don't resist the limits of a small home, they cooperate with them. Instead of trying to force more space with bulky, over-efficient furniture, they invite light in as a silent companion. From shoji screens that blur boundaries to polished wooden floors that gently reflect the day, every element contributes to one feeling: openness that doesn't need more square meters. Light isn't harsh or direct, it's diffused, like mist over a mountain or sunlight filtering through autumn leaves. That softness, that imperfection, is exactly what soothes the spirit. In wabi-sabi, beauty isn't found in the glaring obvious, but in what's been softened by time and materials, like the quiet smile of someone who's lived long enough to understand. A 20 square meter apartment doesn't have to stop your sense of horizon. The Japanese borrow light kashikiri no hikari from unexpected places. A shared hallway, an outdoor staircase, a neighbor's tiny garden, a semi-translucent wall, a bedroom window opening into the living area. These are enough to let light travel silently from one corner to another. Connecting spaces like gentle rivers connect villages without disturbing privacy. They also play with height. Just a 20-centimeter elevation in the floor can shift perception entirely. A raised tatami platform isn't just a sleeping area, it becomes a sacred mental zone, a little retreat you can step into without leaving home. Meanwhile, the lower genkan, the entryway where you remove your shoes, feels like a small descent into mindfulness. Stepping back up into the main space carries with it a quiet ritual of renewal, even if it's only a few feet away from your bed. The Japanese teach us something beautifully simple. The space outside is a reflection of the stillness within. When light is treated like a friend, when rooms are allowed to breathe, even 20 square meters can feel like a place without borders. And sometimes, what makes a space feel expansive isn't how much it can hold, but how much it can let go of, without losing its soul. 2. Natural materials and color tones. There's something quietly profound about touching unfinished wood, walking barefoot across warm bamboo flooring, or leaning against a wall covered in washi paper as light as mist. It's not just a tactile experience, it's something the soul can feel. In a compact space of only 20 square meters, where physical dimensions are tight, it's the material, not the layout, that expands the sense of space from the inside out. The Japanese understand deeply that natural materials don't just exist on the surface, they live, they breathe, and they age with time. A wooden plank is never just wood, it's time made visible. It might darken as the years pass, pick up small scratches as someone pulls out a chair, but those marks become the very essence of what the Japanese call mono, no aware, the quiet awareness of impermanence. Instead of hiding the traces of time, they embrace them, because they know, when something can change, it can also tell a story. In small living spaces, using natural materials is not a stylistic choice, it's a healing act. Wood brings warmth without the need for artificial heat. Bamboo makes a soft, calming sound underfoot like nature whispering through the city noise. A tatami mat touched by early morning sun releases a faint, earthy scent, like a childhood memory you can't quite name. These details don't clamor for attention, but they linger. They don't excite the senses, they soothe them. The color palette of a Japanese space doesn't come from paint swatches, it comes from nature itself, from the white of clouds, the beige of sand, the pale brown of tree bark, the deep black of charred wood. Each tone carries a soft rhythm enough to warm the space without overwhelming the person inside. In a 20 square meter apartment, white is used to amplify light, beige to retain warmth, and a single deep tone, maybe indigo or burnt cedar, anchors the room, keeping it grounded amidst the gentle brightness. Authentic materials, uncompromised, unimitated, are essential. A Japanese home may accept a scratched piece of real wood, but rarely a flawless piece of faux vinyl pretending to be wood. It's not about perfection, it's about breath. They believe that if something cannot breathe with you, it cannot live with you. No matter how polished, synthetic materials lack the quiet soul of the real. Meanwhile, a simple hinoki plank unadorned can become part of the silence that makes a space sacred. And then, there's something no one says aloud, but everyone who lives in these spaces feels time does not wear down natural materials, it deepens them. Every mark, every darkened edge, every softening of a texture over time becomes a gentle reminder that you are here, that you are present, that you're growing alongside this space. Not preserving it unchanged, but living with it, aging with it as two living beings in quiet companionship. In a world obsessed with the new, the Japanese quietly choose to live alongside the old. They don't aim to keep a surface pristine, but let the space write its own story day by day. A 20 square meter apartment, in that way, is not just a home, it becomes a silent journal. A place where every worn corner is proof of presence. A place where soft colors and raw textures don't just make the space beautiful, they make it gentle. And when you live in a space like that, you begin to understand beauty doesn't lie in perfection, but in the way things and people grow old together. 3. Multifunctional furniture and smart design. Living in a 20 square meter apartment isn't just a challenge, it's an invitation to awaken to each decision, to the presence of every object allowed into your living space. In a place this small, there's no room for excess. Everything must earn its right to be there, not just in terms of function, but in how it contributes to the soul of the space. When a table becomes a bed, when a stair holds your clothing, when a platform folds into the wall, it's not a clever trick. It's a quiet reverence for the sacred emptiness between things. The Japanese don't race to pack in conveniences. They choreograph space with intention. Each piece of furniture has its own quiet performance, a movement, a role, a time to appear and a time to disappear. A chair can be a morning reading spot, an afternoon tea companion, and disappear at night to make space for a guest futon. Small space is no longer a restriction, it becomes a stage for quiet transformation. And when you know exactly what something is for, and when it's needed, every use becomes a kind of ritual. And ritual, in its essence, brings depth to the everyday. Danshari reminds us, if an object no longer serves the heart, it must go. Which is why every item that stays isn't just useful, it's meaningful. A small table where you meditate each morning, a folding mat you lie on to read each night, these objects become companions of the inner life. They don't impose, they adapt. And in that adaptability, you begin to feel something powerful. that you are in control of your environment, not the other way around. Smart design doesn't announce itself. It hides. Cabinets are built into the wall. Doors have no handles. Furniture rolls quietly on wheels, allowing you to change the entire room in a few minutes. All of it serves one purpose: to protect the quiet. Not just the quiet of sound, but the quiet of sight. Visual silence, the kind that soothes a tired mind in a city overwhelmed by noise, ads, and motion. Color matters too, not to impress, but to dissolve. Neutral shades like soft gray, pale wood, or gentle browns help furniture blend into the whole like a single breath. When objects don't shout for attention, the room becomes calm. And in that calm, you begin to hear yourself again. To live small doesn't mean to live less. It means to live fully with clarity. When one object serves many purposes, it reduces the number of decisions you have to make. And when your mind is no longer drained by constant choices, it becomes clearer, calmer, and more resilient. A 20 square meter room, in that way, becomes more than a place to live. It becomes a place to rest, to grow, to reset your energy every single day. And eventually, you realize that good design isn't the kind that draws compliments. It's the kind you forget because everything simply belongs. When space adapts to your life, the mind becomes free. 4. Flexible spaces and subtle zoning. There's a quiet beauty hidden in the way Japanese spaces unfold. Not in ornate details or complex architecture, but in how a small room transforms gently to match the rhythm of life. A 20 square meter apartment, when lived in with intention, no longer feels like a confined box. It becomes a flexible portal to multiple inner worlds. The same space might be a kitchen in the morning, a meditation corner at noon, and a bedroom by night, all through the soft shifting of sliding panels or the simple act of rearranging what's already there. Each transformation isn't disruptive, it's more like a silent dance, calm, deliberate, and grounded. Flexibility doesn't mean chaos. In fact, it offers a kind of inner stability, the kind that comes from knowing things can shift without losing their essence. In Japanese philosophy, this idea closely aligns with Ma, the pause between actions, the space between objects, the breath between moments. When a room knows how to pause, how to be still, it becomes a sanctuary for the mind. The Japanese often create thresholds, narrow entryways, low door frames, tight corridors, not to limit movement, but to heighten awareness. These compressions don't make a space feel smaller. On the contrary, they make what follows feel expansive by contrast. Just like a musical rest enhances the note that follows, spatial pauses create emotional resonance. When you step through a small genkan and into a wider room, your body instinctively slows, your breath deepens, and you become more present to your surroundings. Zoning in Japanese homes rarely relies on walls or doors. Instead, it happens through elevation, light, and texture. A raised platform, even by just a few inches, signals a subtle shift. This is where you pause, sit down, change your mindset. Climbing up to a small loft space, even if it's only a few steps, can feel like retreating into a private world. You don't need instructions, your body senses the difference. And in that quiet perception, you begin to relate to space not through logic, but through feeling. In small apartments, it's easy to feel boxed in. But when your space can shift with you, contracting when you need focus, expanding when you want connection, splitting when you crave solitude, you're no longer living in a fixed box. You're living in something alive. A place that listens, responds, and quietly changes with your emotional state. Space stops being a backdrop and becomes a silent companion. Flexibility in design also teaches acceptance. It shows us how to stop forcing things into permanence, how to loosen our grip on fixed ideas, and let our homes reflect the impermanence of our inner world. When we can live with change without resistance, we begin to feel spacious even in the smallest of places. And then one day, you realize your tiny apartment is no longer the thing limiting you. It's the space that quietly opens the door between the world outside and the stillness within. You didn't need more square footage. You just needed more softness in the way you relate to space. 5. Reducing belongings and refined decoration. In the end, the most important part of minimalist living isn't about organizing or optimizing space, it's about asking yourself, how much do you truly need to feel whole? In a 20 square meter apartment, that question stops being theoretical. It becomes personal, pressing, and present in every corner of your daily life. In Japan, the answer often lies in the philosophy of danshari, to release, to refine, and to gently let go of what no longer resonates with your heart. Danshari isn't just tidying up. It's a spiritual practice, where every item you release is honored with gratitude. In the Shinto worldview, possessions are not just objects. They carry spirit, hold memory, and reflect the quiet thread connecting you to your life. The decision to keep or let go isn't based on price or frequency of use. It's based on whether that item still makes you feel alive. If it doesn't, it's quietly taking up space where something more meaningful could be. When you begin to see your space as a garden to be tended, not a container to be filled, you become more attuned to what truly matters. A simple tea set for slow mornings, a well-worn book you return to each year, a soft blanket that reminds you of your first winter alone in a new city. These small things, kept with intention, naturally make everything else feel unnecessary. In Japanese minimalism, decoration isn't about adding, it's about pausing. An object placed in the room isn't there to dress it up, but to draw you inward. A bamboo vase, a small stone, a simple calligraphy scroll, they don't speak loudly, but they echo something deeper within you. And in their quiet presence, the room begins to breathe with you. True decor doesn't embellish, it distills, until nothing more needs to be said. When your belongings are refined down to the essentials, the mind starts to settle. You no longer have to choose between 10 outfits. You're not distracted by which mug to use. Every simplified decision gives energy back to your creativity, your focus, your peace. The Japanese call this mushin no mind, not in the sense of being empty, but of being undisturbed by clutter. And from that space, something tender begins to bloom, a new idea. As you brew your tea, a soft emotion as you fold your blanket, a slow breath rising in the afternoon light. A 20 square meter apartment doesn't give you permission to keep everything. But precisely because of that, it reminds you of what's truly worth keeping. And sometimes, all it takes is one empty corner, one line of sight unobstructed by stuff, one breath uninterrupted by visual noise for you to feel more spacious than ever before. Because the space outside is always a reflection of the quiet within. When you learn to live with less and don't feel like you're missing anything, you arrive at a very personal kind of abundance. One that doesn't come from quantity, but from depth. If this video made you pause, reflect, or simply listen more closely to your space or to yourself, that alone is a beautiful beginning. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Write, "I choose to live gently" if you too are on a journey towards simplicity and quiet clarity. Maybe you've started clearing out a drawer, changing the way light enters your room, or simply sitting still for a moment longer each day. Every change, no matter how small, carries meaning. Thank you for staying until the end, and for allowing yourself to open up to a lifestyle that speaks in quiet but powerful ways. Remember, every intentional act, whether it's folding a towel or letting go of something that no longer serves you, is a first step on the path to mindful living. Let's continue exploring together, not with urgency or pressure, but with softness and steady presence. I'll see you in the next video.